We all want the most out of 2024, or whatever year you happen to be watching this, and in this episode of Erudite Magic, I'm going to show you what I've done to help set myself up for success in my magic life this year. So what are we doing? This isn't some kind of change your life, set New Year's resolutions, or anything like that. Instead, this video is going to give you a system to help you evaluate where you are today and how satisfied are you with that versus maybe where you'd like to be a year from now. That way we can intentionally lean into the things that are important to us. And the beauty is, I think this is relatively simple. This is everything you need to get started. Basically, a piece of paper and a pen. If you want it to be more fun, you can grab several different colors of pens, but a simple pen and piece of paper will suffice. We're getting ready to map our magic selves out onto a piece of paper. Once you have the piece of paper, draw a circle on it. This is your life. I know, right now it looks pretty boring, but don't worry, we're about to spice it up. I want you to divide this pie up into 3 different areas. And yes, if your circles are as bad as mine, it still works. These 3 different sections on the pie are education, integration, and application. Don't worry, I'm going to explain what those mean in just a second. When we look at our magic lives, these 3 areas represent big components of what it takes to add magic to our lives. But I understand that this doesn't mean anything yet, so let's break it down even further to help us understand. Within each slice of pie that we've already added, we're going to break that down into 3 further slices. We should now have a 9-slice pie. Now we're going to label the subsections here. Within education, I want you to write down these words: acquiring, reading, and interacting. For integration, we're going to label them scripting, customizing, and prioritizing. And under application, write down practicing, performing, and debriefing. Okay, now that we've done this, now comes the interesting part. We're going to rate our satisfaction with each slice of a pie using a scale from 1 to 10, with 10 being the best and 1 being the worst. This is completely subjective. Don't write down something that compares you to some other person or some arbitrary standard that you think you should live up to. Put down your satisfaction with where you are. But before you start writing down numbers, let me define what each one of these things means so you have a better idea of how you should rank yourself. If we start at the beginning under education and acquiring, how happy are you with your level of purchases as it relates to magic? Don't make this about are you acquiring enough or not. If you're getting what you want each year, then rate yourself highly. If you feel like you overpurchased or underpurchased, then maybe you give yourself a lower score. Speaking of the acquiring section for your magic life, let me introduce you to the sponsor of this week's episode, Don's Magic and Books. Don is an online, book-focused magic dealer based out of Minnesota. He loves to make sure that you can get books for your library at reasonable prices. He sells all of the latest and greatest books that you'd expect to see from a magic dealer, but what makes Don different than other magic dealers is the fact that he carries older, out-of-print magic books that are harder to find. And he does it at very reasonable prices, which also sets him apart from many of the other Facebook groups or eBay that seem like they're trying to take advantage of owning a rare book. So whether you're trying to find something that's off the beaten path or you're looking to acquire something that just came out, check out Don's website via the link down in the description below. I know you'll love shopping with him. He has fast, free shipping if you meet certain thresholds in the United States, and he's just a great dude. Now, let's get into the rest of the process that will help you become the best version of you that you want to be. Reading, the next step. Are you satisfied with how much you get into your purchases? Interacting. Do you like how much you discuss what you're learning with other magicians and hear about what they're learning? This could be through a book club, it could be right here in the Erudite Magic comments section. That's up to you to decide. Moving into the interaction third of our pie, let's talk about scripting. How happy are you with your efforts to make tricks interesting and relevant for you? This differs from the next slice, customizing, and by that I mean tailoring a trick to work for you. It could be as simple as substituting a different sleight or adding some sort of subtlety that makes it more devious, or maybe even adjusting the procedure so that it can be done stand up without a table to focus on your performance environment. And finally, under the integration, prioritizing. You could call this one organizing if you wanted to, because the question is, we all have lifetimes of magic to learn, read, perform. So how do you feel about your organization to prioritize what you're going to learn? Speaking of learning, we're getting into that application section, and the first subsection there is practicing. Once you've decided on what you're going to learn and you have that list, how satisfied are you with the work that you're putting into actually going through the moves and learning these tricks? Performing should be pretty self-evident. The goal of most magic is to perform it for an audience. Are you doing as much of this as you would like to be doing? And finally, debriefing. If you're serious about getting better at magic, what are you doing after your performances to examine whether things went well or what you could do better? Okay, so take a second to fill out a subjective number next to each one of these categories. If you're feeling especially ambitious, you can actually color these in relative to the number that you're giving it. My paper's starting to get a little messy, and if yours is, that's fine too, because you can always do another version. So you should have a number next to each slice of pie on here, and that number represents your satisfaction with the current status of your magic life. And if you zoom out and you look at within each of the larger buckets of education, integration, and application, you start to see patterns emerge. Are you focusing enough time and effort on the things that you would like to focus on? Take a second to evaluate the numbers next to each one of these categories, and within each third of the bigger sections, I want you to circle one area that you're going to try to improve over the next 12 months. It doesn't have to be your lowest ranked item, but obviously that is one that you're feeling some kind of dissatisfaction with. And if you put the work into that area, you'll likely improve the net overall score as long as it doesn't detract from one of the other categories. The items in my buckets that I'm going to choose to work on within education, it's interacting. I had a pretty high score and I'm generally pretty happy with where I'm at, but I think that there's even more that we can do to build up a real community here on Erudite Magic. Within integration, I mostly want to focus on prioritizing. And the reason for that is a lot of my priorities are dictated by what's coming out and what I need to read. I'd like to take more control over the things that I want to integrate into my show and really give them the time and attention they deserve. Under application, practicing was my lowest satisfaction area, and much of that comes down to the fact that I have a show that I do, so I don't spend a lot of time practicing new things, but I'd like to try to work on some of these items that I read, because there's a lot of great magic out there, and you never know when something will cross-pollinate with something else to turn into a beautiful new piece of magic. When you're done with this and you've evaluated what you want to work on, try to come up with some goals for how you think you can improve over the next 12 months. Feel free to comment down below with what those areas are for you if you want some accountability, or join my Discord server. It's absolutely free, and you can find someone there to help you improve not only your interaction, but maybe hold you accountable for some of these other areas you're seeking improvement. Here's a bonus tip for you. If you want the most out of this exercise, which is really just a study on self-reflection and where you want to be, so it's the first step towards goal setting. But if you want to see dramatically increased results, then keep this piece of paper in an area where you will see it often. Remind yourself of where you're at and where you want to be. And if you want help knowing how to get more out of your study of magic books, then check out this video. I give you my top 5 tips for getting more out of your study. As always, my friends, I appreciate you watching, and until next time, keep reading.